Hey guys, what's going on? Back in with another Cold War Zombies video, and as you know, today Treyarch released a video by Craig Houston recapping the story so far for Cold War, the Dark Aether story, and also the Outbreak story too. He recapped it really nicely in really good detail, so I highly recommend you watching it if you haven't. I'm not going to actually play it and go over much of anything that's in there because it's a pretty lengthy video, and some of it literally is just a recap. I don't think there's anything new, but it was still great to watch it just in case you weren't sure about anything. He kind of pretty much touched on everything in the Dark Aether story so far that you unlocked in the intel. Pretty much really quickly, it talked about how, well, ultimately we're going to go to try and go to Dark Aether in Ukraine, in the facility, looks like an American town, to kind of rescue or get to Zykov before Omega does. And it's just pretty much a race between Omega and Requiem. Really quickly about that, I think probably, if I had to take a guess, I would say probably Requiem is going to win the race. Because I have a theory that ties in pretty well, and that's not exactly what this is about. But since it's on the topic, I just want to touch on it really quickly. That it works out almost too perfectly in a way that we're in um, the World War II era, and that's when Hanford Site was created for the to create nuclear weapons and a nuclear bomb that we eventually used against Japan. So it would be kind of cool in a way if they did that, like an almost like an alternate reality, of we maybe beat Omega to the Forsaken, we capture him in the big square box, and we bring him to America, and then he maybe breaks out or something like that, and chaos breaks out in America, kind of like Transit. That would be kind of cool, maybe explaining some backstory to Transit and Hanford Site, maybe Bus Route B, maybe some stuff like that they would touch on, because it is almost too convenient that they're looking to capture something almost similar to the way we captured the Avogadro and Alpha Omega, and then eventually sent them to Hanford Site. Again, I mentioned this a couple of days ago that there's a crashed train in Hanford Site in Green Run, that maybe some creature in that story from Black Ops 2 maybe broke out of and escaped and stuff like that. None of that stuff was ever touched on because of time constraint, console constraints, and the Jason Blundell and Jimmy Zielinski drama that was going on back then. So that whole like storyline was pretty much abandoned. I'll put it that way. But it is pretty cool to see, almost in a way, even if it doesn't play out that way, that we might actually go through that, maybe almost like history repeating itself, because technically I believe Green Run happened also in the year 2000, like 20s or something like that. But it'd be kind of cool if we capture him and we transport him to Hanford Site. But again, that's pretty much, again, just a touch recap, mostly on the end of what Craig was talking about. I think by now, unless you have any questions, let me know. I can kind of answer it if you have any questions about the story. However, as far as like an Easter egg is concerned, you're probably seeing it on the screen and been staring at it for a couple minutes now. Is this 1932 time on the clock, I'm going to call it, or VCR player technically. Not saying it's an Easter egg. Not saying it confirms anything necessarily. Not trying to jump to any conclusions. But again, it'd be either coincidence or a real cool Easter egg if that was something that they planned out. Looking back at the older games that people haven't done this yet, and looking back at all the Easter eggs hint that they gave us. You look at maybe World at War, Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3. There were a lot of missed Easter eggs, visual, textual Easter eggs, stuff that you can't data mine, hence the name like Impossible Easter Egg, and that's stuff that Jason Blundell talked about. So the 1932 can be a subtle way Treyarch and Call of Duty might be confirming something without getting into legal trouble, like I said, or it could just be a coincidence. I'm sure if they pick, I'm not saying if they pick something else, you can find a connection to it, but it is a super odd coincidence, if not an amazing Easter egg that they put in the video today. So what I did, 1932, I cross-referenced a couple things, but then I found something that I think fits perfectly. So I'm not going to talk about the other stuff. I'm just going to talk about what I ultimately decided on being like a really cool, amazing Easter egg. So 1932 is obviously can be a year. What I did, I Googled like the events, literally the events of 1932, and it actually jumped out like a sore thumb. I'm like, oh, that is actually so obvious. So what it was, and it actually ties into everything I've said so far in Cold War, going back months and months ago, ever since Firebase Z. You probably might be familiar with that. You might not, so I'm going to recap it, and that's what the bulk of it is going to be about. So Amelia Earhart becomes the first woman to fly solo from coast to coast. Amelia Earhart being what Samantha's middle name is, or potentially what her middle name is in Keener der Toten in Black Ops 1. So in Black Ops 1, I think it says Samantha Amelia Maxis. So Amelia being spelled a couple different ways. You can spell it. Both of it being acceptable at saying. So Amelia Earhart, was the first woman to fly. Obviously, it's saying coast to coast. There's some more stuff in there. She eventually gets lost in what actually turns out to be Zetsubonishima in our story, but in real life, it's the um, around the islands of Zetsubonishima. I'm not going to talk about the real life location because it's kind of doesn't really won't really help you in any way. Just say that Amelia Earhart is the first woman, and it's the same middle name as Samantha. She ends up crashing at Zetsubonishima and ends up being lost. We see the plane fly over in Zetsubonishima, caught on fire. Maybe that's her plane that she was using that eventually crashed at Zetsubonishima, which all fits out perfectly. I'm not saying it's that, and I know legally, and that's the unfortunate thing with people on the internet. They want everything to fit 100% perfect, like a jigsaw puzzle. You have to think of legally. They can't say, all right, we're going to base our story on Amelia Earhart. Her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, her estate's going to sue Activision and Call of Duty. It's going to be like a whole nother, uh, big news or whatever. So they legally can't just say, hey, we're going to base our story on her. They have to put like small little Easter eggs and stuff like that. So it's just an odd coincidence, again, that it says 1932. Again, in Firebase C, we see the new look Samantha Maxis, who has the goggles, who has the red scarf, who has the katana from Takeo. Maybe she went to Zetsubonishima and she's dressed exactly like what Amelia Earhart looked like when she was flying, with the goggles and the red scarf. I'm not going to click on every picture and look for everything, but it's a cool little Easter egg if it is that they're kind of paying homage to Amelia Earhart. And again, for him to use 1932 in the background, that's when she first flew, when the events happened, and she eventually got lost, and she looks exactly um, like Amelia Earhart, who got lost while she was flying, and again, that is kind of the look that Amelia Earhart also has when she was flying. You can find pictures of her with the red scarf and the goggles and stuff like that. And Takeo's katana is just too convenient also, because the Takeo katana cutscene happens at Zetsubonishima. I don't know if that's saying that that's where she crashed. Who knows? Or maybe in the Dark Aether. You can visit different times and places. So the last piece of the puzzle that made everything fit perfectly, and I've mentioned this is probably like the third or fourth time now I'm mentioning it, is the real life Valentina is Valentina Tereshkova, and she was the first and youngest woman to have flown in space. Okay, so let me read this now. She's the first and youngest woman to have flown in space with a solo mission uh, on the Vostok in 1963. So that all fits out perfectly, being Amelia Earhart being the first woman um, to fly from coast to coast or around the world. I think it was. It wasn't coast to coast. I think it was around the world. But then she eventually got lost. Unfortunately, maybe she got lost again. Just to recap, maybe she got lost at Zetsubo-Nishima. Well, she did in real life get lost at Zetsubo-Nishima, but maybe that's what Treyarch was hinting at. Again, people have to realize they legally can't say, "All right, this is going to be a story about Amelia Earhart," because the families and grandchildren are probably just going to pounce on it and file like a $100 million lawsuit against Call of Duty that you stole our grandmother's story and stuff like that. So they had to kind of maybe drop hints like 1932, like her outfit, which is um, pretty well known, pretty famous look. Like once you see that look, you should know right away, depending how young you are or whatever. But when you see that look, you should know right away. Oh, that's Amelia Earhart's look. You know, the fighter, not fighter pilot, but the pilot. Headphones, the goggles, and this is kind of like an air mask when they get in high altitude. You can't breathe. You need like an air tank. I think that's what that is right there. People said it was like the ones that we use to swim underwater in Zetsubo-Nishima. But that's actually, I think, when you get too fly up and out high in altitude, you have to wear an oxygen mask, and that's what that is. So that's hinting plain as day. And I know there's a lot of doubters and haters that are going to say, no, that's not a pilot suit. That's a miner's suit or something like that. So it looks like they did a cool little Easter egg again, or just a big coincidence. Again, the last thing I'm gonna mention, probably again for the third or fourth time, is I don't think Valentina is dead. I don't think Call of Duty and Treyarch's gonna leave her as a villain, being that she was based on a real life kind of like Russian hero, female Russian hero. I don't think that would be kind of what they would message that they would want to send. Or it might just look like a really bad coincidence, and they probably think, oh, this guy's just looking for content, whatever. But I mean, everything kind of fits. It would be a cool little Easter egg if it was their intention. If not, it's just a uh, almost in a way an unfortunate coincidence. All right, I'll see you guys later.